Hey everybody, it's Sunday night. It's flagship time. Flagship show of Unlock the Middle. Josh Stobart, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA, here, making sure that it's the day where we share knowledge across the United States via this beautiful thing, social media, making sure that we all grow stronger together. We have a kind of like a replay thing going on today because of bad quality the previous time. And
Yeah.
because you know what? We're bringing an awesome administrator who has written a couple of books, who talks to us from the heart, and that's what we need to hear right now. During this recovery time, past the hangover year last year, we're recovering from everything, making sure that we learn from each other because you know what? We're only stronger together. And how does that happen? By all of us interacting on different platforms, such as this one, and getting knowledge and taking it back to our sphere of influence. So it doesn't matter where you're from, whether it be from Alaska or Hawaii, whether it be from Maine or all the way to Florida or anywhere in the middle. Remember, join us tonight. And if you see it on the rebroadcast, like it and share it so that other people can contribute to the ongoing knowledge that's going on. What do you think about that, Dean?
I'll tell you what. Thank you, Josh, and great lead-in as always. Happy December, everybody. You're thinking about where we're at right now and how far we've come along the learning journey in school. It's been absolutely, I don't want to call it crazy, but I'll call it insanely kind of cool. Ups and downs, ebbs and flows. And, it's funny because that first trimester ended last Friday. And I always love at the end of a quarter or a trimester to bring everybody collectively back together again and just start talking about academic goals, talking about behavioral goals, and talking about emotional needs and what that means as a group. And it's so cool to see kids, just kind of funnel together and do the right thing. And again, that's what our job is all about. So I'm really happy about that. And, we start talking about social emotional needs, and we're slowly making that turn, and we're getting a little bit better. Kids are getting, I don't want to say we're used to, but I want to say they're starting to understand, and I always coined the phrase, our house. This is our house. And if you're going to do this to our house, we wouldn't come to your house and act this way in any capacity, because I want to make sure you understand. If you're going to throw paper towels on the floor, overflush the toilets, do those things, I'm not getting invited back again if I go to your house and do that. So it kind of makes it real for them. But again, they're kids, and we're always working with them and trying to mold them the way we have to. So happy Sunday night to all of you. My name is Dean Packard. I'm the principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. And I'll tell you, we got a great show again tonight. And having Michael back on again, I'll tell you, I got a chance to get to talk to him a little bit like you did, Josh. And, he's just like us. He's a principal by day, and he's aspiring to make others better around them by night. And you think about that. That's that hierarchy of growth. So great to have him back. And how about you? Been doing well? I haven't seen you in a while. Last time we talked, I think you were in a taxi trying to get on the show on Tuesday night.
Hey, to everybody out there, if you don't know, I got to spread knowledge. So out of something negative, something positive, if you go to Houston, there's 2 airports. Don't tell me the H-Town. I don't know that. And if you rent your car, make sure you rent it from that airport. Because I got lost. I missed out on office hours. And you know what, Dean? In office hours, the answer was not soft tacos. The answer was crispy.
So
that was fake news. That guy right there, he gave fake news.
Come
I
on,
did not
man.
say soft
That's
tacos.
the New England style. You got to understand that, okay?
Oh,
we do things a little bit differently up here in the Northeast. Just keeping you on your toes. I'm glad you were listening, though, brother. I'm glad you were listening.
I was there. I was hearing it. And a personal note, it was because I took time out away from work to do a special vacation with my son to take him to go see a concert from Dallas to Houston so we could share and bond together. Because that's what it's all about. Yeah, it's not only about students, but you know what? It's about us and our families.
Yeah.
And it's what really, in the end, who's going to be there at our deathbed. Just remember.
Well, taking care of us when we get older, you're absolutely correct. Those are our offspring, no doubt. Hey, listen, we got Michael in the background right now, and I think he's outside somewhere. I'm going to bring him in. There he is. Michael, welcome back to the show, my friend. Great to see you.
Hey, Dean, thanks so much for having me again. Yeah, we had a great episode, except my sound was terrible better tonight. And I was talking to Josh over the weekend, and he was concert, and he didn't tell you where he was going. So he's kind of like a bad dude because he went, right? And I thought, wow, Josh goes to see Judas Priest. So that he's a bad man. You know what I'm saying?
Any video of that? I didn't see any video pop out.
Oh, no.
That's not quiet? Okay.
Hey, guys, all I'll tell you is this much. Us old people, a lot of us don't look good because I saw my contemporaries at Judas Priest. They're hurting, brother. Let me tell you, they're hurting right now.
Those extra workouts and you're watching what you eat, that makes a big difference for you, my friend. I love it. All good stuff. Why don't you take the lead on this, Josh?
Hey, Mike, you know what? As we were talking, give everybody a little background because you know what? Even though I've heard a lot of the same podcast from the same person, I still don't know about the individual. And I like hearing a little bit background. So come, Mike, talk to us. To tell everybody out there in the media, social media world, tell us a little bit about Mike.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an Upper Central New Jersey, and I've been doing that for a long time. This is my 25th year in education. Started when I was 9, and I have two daughters, two beautiful daughters. The other one's a sophomore in high school. I was telling you guys I'm on the road because I'm actually heading over to Arena, which is in Trenton, New Jersey, and that's where she'll be competing in a cheer competition. Wouldn't miss out 2/3 of the way, and found a Starbucks to sit in the parking lot and connect with my old. I spent a lot of time learning a lot about kids with special needs and teacher, and went through some of my own struggles as a kid, and really just for when I became a leader and then when I started writing. So as you know, I've written about 36 articles, these most read. So suddenly I thought, well, people are actually interested in what I have to say. Might as well keep sharing it. So that's why I've written a couple books too. Most recently, the Radical Principles one.
Well, why don't we start with the Radical Principle, Josh? Let's just jump right in there and let's dig in and tell us what drove you to write that book, and what are the biggest takeaways that you found that you employ back into your job on a daily routine?
Yeah. So what was really great about it was this was almost a book with this publisher, Ion Education 2.0, because of trauma, and I did this right as we were in the throes of our, once in a lifetime. And it was not just because of the pandemic that I wrote Leading Schools Through Trauma. We were already recognizing this in students before the pandemic. So I really felt like I needed to give some tangible and walk away with the strategy ideas right away. And that's what I did when I put this book together. What I do in those is I'll put like story and science together, anecdotes. I've been in hundreds of schools because I have a mentor to new principals as well. It meant so many different schools over my career of my 25 years, and I have a lot of anecdotal observations with this research. So Radical Principles came about because I felt like I wasn't done writing with Leading Schools Through Trauma, and I wanted to talk about how principals weighted structurally right in the middle. We're like middle management, and we have to respect and honor our district needs are, and at the same time balance supporting children, mesh that together. So I spent a lot of time, as I said, looking at research and many other successful leaders and some not so successful, and then really pulling this together and providing a package that just gives you packed into this book. I also talk a lot about humility, and I get into that, of course, off line, and the importance of understanding, be thoughtful about you. Being radical doesn't mean being like in your face and I'm right anywhere. Instead, what it is it's a lot of maneuvering and doing so cleverly and help kids, especially disadvantaged ones. The crux of this book is about helping disadvantaged, like Leading Schools Through Trauma was, and most children are struggling in some disadvantaged ways.
And you know what? During this time that you're talking about the kids struggling, but not only kids and adults, because we see that there's an exodus from our field, and it's hard to find team members, let alone that ripple effect that was created by the 2 years of kids staying at home. So this creates a certain pattern of emotions that happens going back into a brick and mortar place, going back to what used to be. And some kids never understood what used to be in brick and mortar because they were never in school. their kindergarten
Yeah.
first year. So, what kind of patterns do you see right now, or are you picking up from your research that you're going through that helps us out all as educators right now facing this new way of seeing education?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of you so that your audience can get as much out of this 30 minutes as possible. One of them, you know, when we think about timing, and Dan Pink wrote a book simply called When years ago, and he did a lot of both moonshot views on timing, which means those in the moments kinds of things we deal with. So here's a couple of quick examples. I've heard some variation of you should never look at your phone first thing in the morning, and he gets into Ray. It has such an impact on literally rewiring our brain for the day. So if we look at our way first thing, instead of trying to do something either creative or productive, we're actually brain back into a more primal state. We're usually reading more urgent kinds of messages, and of course they are, but they may seem that way the way they're presented. And you get in these back and forth exchange thing, and sometimes those things can become hostile, and you're starting your day in a house for how we focus. So it's so important to think about managing that also in usually sometime around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is ironic because that's usually when we have to think about not so much changing that, because you may not be able to, but instead thinking about ways to motivate others during that time of the day. That's a natural lull in almost everybody to be thinking about how we're managing that time, and also understanding that when we're resting is creative. So use that time for our creative, visionary kinds of thoughtful planning. And then later on in the day, like around 3, when we're just kind of like, oh, that's okay to kind of just not, because your brain is not in the best space. It will come back later on for one last. And so understanding those kinds of things with timing are key. And again, I get into both some actual things in the book that principals have been through, and also more specific into research and back it up so that people can say, oh, okay, this makes sense. And we're certainly managing those time that sort of, hit us high and low, and how to maximize those.
I love you talking about the brain. One of the things that I talked about in regards to our kids, we talked about the muscle, the most importance when you're growing up through adolescence, and that is making your brain grow. And I try to help them understand their purpose and their why. And if they can understand that early on, I think they understand why they come to school every day. And I always say, it's not math, it's not science, it's not social studies, it's not ELA. It's helping you learn to learn and make good decisions, because the rest of it will fall into place. That being said, I just want to circle back for a second. Let's talk about open mindset and how that affects the brain, and how, all of us in education, as we're evolving, coming out of post-COVID now and trying to do things differently, what that means in general for all of us, not only the adults in the building, but also the kids.
Yeah. So psychological scientist named Adam Grant wrote this book called Open Mindset. And again, the anecdotal kinds of things that I've seen that either go wrong or don't. And I'll give you a couple. There was a lot of masking debate that went on in my school, just communities, and you had very polar opposite perspectives about this. You had people who were convinced and everyone should wear masks, and that on the other end, we absolutely shouldn't. And let's try to come to a compromise in the middle. Of course, wearing a mask or not may seem like, when you really get down to it, most things are not in how we're managing things, mindset, and also more importantly, managing that ourselves, but also more importantly, teaching children. It's so important to bring people to the table, not on some polar end, many political divisions that unfortunately start to interfere with schools, and that's the absolute for kids to be facing these polarizations. Instead, what they need to see is that there might be something, even if they don't quite agree with it, and if they're willing to just listen, they don't have to understand it. It's going to help them manage their own position better, and then be able to defend it. This is a lot like things like the CER, which is claim, evidence, and reasons of unpacking of the scientific method and things like this. We teach this in school, and in essence, there's almost never one absolute right answer. There might be, well, math 3 + 3 is 6, yes, but in most cases in education, that's not the case. Understand, to explore, to be critical thinkers. They're not being critical thinkers if they're saying this is being taught that. So the open mindset really delves into that, and I get into some specifics in the book.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So having that open mindset, you need to understand self and how you work, how you function as an individual, whether it be the first year teacher, the seasoned administrator, whoever it might be on our campus. It's about knowing yourself. Why is that important? Why is knowing how you function every day at school, at work, a crucial part to being successful and becoming better versions of yourself?
Yeah, it's so important to be able to, be at your own productivity and understand that we're never really always on the top of our game. No one is. And it's realistic to say, okay, I made a bad decision, make the best decision. And how can I continue to grow from that? And I'll give you another quick example. And there's a true story about a kid. I mentioned this in the Choppy episode. So we're gonna get this true story about a kid who was with his dad, and they were driving a truck up, and they walked stuck. They couldn't get anywhere, so they got out and they walked up to see what was going on. A tractor trailer wedged under a bridge. The driver had obviously misjudged the height of this bridge, and everybody was looking around, and you had these engineers and you had police officers and firemen, and they're like how to truck from, and it was a one-way in and out, so everybody was completely this tractor trailer out and not do any more damage to the bridge truck. And everybody was kind of getting more angry, and they were in a hurry, and this kid's tugging on his dad's shoulder, and the kid says, dad says, hang on, I'm trying. The kid says, no, Dad, I got to tell you something. He says, what? And he says, well, why don't they just let the air out of the tires? Everybody was like, oh. So this is something so simplistic. Sometimes things from kids sometimes that are so simplistic, and we might be quick to shut those ideas off. But considering the concept of lateral thinking, which is not a new concept, by the way, it's just one of those things that a scientist just came up with over 50 years ago. And it's this idea that sometimes we just back, really keep that open mindset and consider other possibilities, even if they seem comfortable out of the way, because these are the kind of things that are going to raise that level of radical leadership.
So take that to the next level here, and let's just switch gears and let's talk about navigating the middle, the management of it, the multipliers versus the diminishers. Okay, because you know what, in our business, we want to surround ourselves with multipliers. We want people to be able to take what we say and go and be able to put their own twist into it, but move forward. We call those the people that evolve. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second from this mindset.
Yeah, sure. So multipliers, best way to kind of describe the multiplier in a snippet, multiplier leader is the kind of leader that wants to hire people that are better than him or her. It is not necessarily better at everything, but certainly at something. And multipliers do is they make risks okay. So when we're encouraging like our teachers and by to take chances and not feel like that risk is detrimental in such a way that they wouldn't otherwise be willing to, we start to expand our creativity other ways that are far more successful. Great organizations do this. Amazon, they're just very successful organizations, and that's usually because they encourage behavior like this. They into risk, and then they celebrate sometimes the failure, because they need to say, hey, it's okay, unless we, it's the old William Graham Bell concept where he things and then finally got the light bulb right. So that's how we do it. And again, I go back to science. It's important to emphasize that multiplier leaders encourage this kind of behavior, where we want people to feel argue with me, especially, when I think I have a great idea and they're like, Mike, that's not going to work. I love to say to people, poke holes in my idea. Tell me what's wrong with it. What am I missing? What can I do? You've got all these people around you surrounding you with these great ideas, and it's making your whole successfully. You're going to be able to get access to things you normally would not have. And administrator leaders more common than they should be, according to the research. And these are the leaders that think they go. Sometimes there's even some narcissism sprayed in there, and they feel like they're less successful than them, less intelligent than them, and any risk they take, they're going to squash in my idea. Yeah, and I'm going to take all the credit. And it's hard to believe this, but are out there, not just in education. They are out there, and unfortunately, stifling environments. They're institutionalizing inequities with kids. Organizations are not succeeding. So it's really important to keep this in mind and understand the differential. A little bit of a diminisher and a multiplier on a scale. So it's important to try to be way over here and just be cognizant of that. That's that open mindset thing again. It's human nature to say, that's humane, right? But we need to be so thoughtful about it and open-minded so that we hire a leader that our staff and our students need.
Kudos for asking to punch holes in an idea, because I don't think every administrator I know wants that to happen. So that means you're seasoned, and that means that you have that futuristic mindset about you. Okay, I love that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, while you were talking about that, it reminded me of Brian Martin's podcast that I heard, I think yesterday, and it had to do with a lady that created Spanx, and she made a $5,000 investment in. She's worth $1 billion with Spanx, and that the thing that reminded me of your story, or what you were telling the audience, was that the dad always asked her when she got home is, "What did you fail in today?"
Yep.
What did you fail in today?
So he. That's fantastic.
And he would praise her when she would say what she failed in and how she felt about it. So failure did not become something negative; it became something of working towards.
Yeah.
Failing was not working. So I mean, I wanted to share that. Y'all listen to Brian Martin's podcast on that. It's episode 11, something like that. But
Josh, before you go on, we call that stretch. Where have you been stretched? Tell me, how have you been stretched, and what does that look like, and how does that make you feel? Because you're not always going to be comfortable, and as your brain grows, you're going to be in those situations where you're going to have to step back and self-reflect. So, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up.
And, talking
true. About growth.
Well, okay. Well, I'm going to push back on something with you, Mike. The reason I left the previous campus was because I was raising other parents' kids. I chose to take on a campus that was a D- that had 2,550 kids. So when you combine with parents and workers, it was a little city of close to 3,000 people daily that I oversaw. Okay, the reason I'm saying that is because when I choose that, I know that I have to put in the time. And after 3 years, thanks to a great support faculty and staff, thanks to a great group of everybody, that went from a D- to a B-. But I didn't care because it had to be done for the success of kids. It's not about me or anything. But here goes where I'm going to push back at you of what your concept is about resting. When I chose to go to a D- school, I knew I had to put in at least, being always at high school, I knew my regular AP days, I would put in 12-hour days being an assistant principal at a high school. When you sit in the main chair, I used to put in, and I'm not lying, and a lot of you can attest to this, 16-hour days. And that would be Monday through Friday, and a lot of times on Sunday, because Sunday you have cheer and flag competition like you are right now. So for me, I did not agree in resting. I did not agree because if I wanted to change the culture, people needed to see me at different events, freshman events, kazoo events, marble events, whatever it might be. They needed to see me out there so I could have that exchange with people. And I chose that. So I don't believe that when you choose and be in the main chair, it's in the best interest of kids. So I never rested. I never took breaks. I put work ahead of family because I knew what I was walking into on that. Now you believe that it's okay to take rest. It's okay to recalibrate self. So talk to me, convince me, this old 30 plus year man, about why at that situation, and there's a lot of high schools out there, guys. There's a lot of middle schools that are 1,200, 1,500. They're getting letter grades. Why should I rest when I know the commitment that I made when I said, Superintendent, thank you for giving me the job?
I think, I've worked those 16-hour days. The answer I would give you is what a person who works 16-hour days does. Well, and I know you're a family man. So it definitely had an effect on my family, putting myself too far out there in terms of things. So then I had to start to question what is my goal here. But the other part of this is that it's not sustainable. Years, I was able to do it for a few years. I was a young man. We're not young men anymore. I think that's and at some point we've got to manage our rest. Successful athletes, I think of Tom Brady, is big on rest and how he manages. Good night's rest adds energy that allows us to more use like 10 or 12 hours instead of 16 hours. What ends up happening after the eighth to decline to a point where it's actually below, a subprime, we're actually creating negative situations. So there's all this, and what I'm talking about is based in science. I've written it in my books, and it's key to understand that sustainability. A 12 or 14 or 16-hour day for a few weeks at a time or something, or that you're not actually giving back the most productive of yourself, the best version of yourself to your community if you're continuing for years at a time.
I'm glad you said that. Time or efficiency. Think about it. As I've gotten older, I mean, those 16-hour days always happen. There's no doubt, because there's always something going on in the school where you can be present.
Yep.
The idea is this: manage the people around you to get the same output, to give them opportunities to build capacity, and you're going to be just fine as a leader. Not only will you still get your message across, but you will also build the capacity of others for the most potential leaders that are out there. And again, no one's going to put on the back of your tombstone, thank you very much for 18-hour days. They're just not. And I guarantee that I'd hear that from upstairs if I went upstairs right now, because you're gone forever, and it becomes tough.
And you just touched on something, Dean, that made me think about a chapter in my book, and I talk about how, if staff come into me and say, hey, listen, I need to leave 5 minutes early. I have an issue, yes, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And the reason for that is them in that occasion, they're going to give me back tenfold. So now you've just economized that or made it more. And I mean, I know I'm being like sort of very objective and scientific about this, but it just motivates to want to run circles around the building for you if you ask them to. And so those little important, again, we talked about timing earlier. So this all kind of comes together, right? It's those important moments. And how's that situation? Do we meet the moment and make the right decision? By the way, we're all human, right decision. But if we synergistically compound just smart decision tenfold.
Mike, I'm going to circle back one more time. And we talked last time when you were on, we talked about leveling the playing field for all students, disadvantaged students, particularly because, you know what, education doesn't have barriers. It just doesn't. And I said, it doesn't matter your color, your religion, your background, doesn't matter. Everybody has the right to learn. And I told this story. I had 151 kids. And I said, this little child came to me and said, Mr. Packard, I love coming to school, but you want to know something? There are kids in my class that disturb the teacher and disturb the flow all the time. And I never get the maximum time to be able to learn. And I told that story to all the kids. And I said, nobody has the right to take away from somebody's ability to learn.
Yeah.
And they just looked at me with big eyes. And I said, this is why we're here. Okay. Our job as administrators, support staff, is to ensure that doesn't happen. So let's talk a little bit about the disadvantage, and let's talk about how we can make sure that we do level that playing field. And not only from behavioral stuff that happens in classes, but be able to be pushed and challenged and supported to get to that next level.
Yeah. So I use the example of feedback. And one of the things I talk about is did something with 19 words of feedback. And I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I know next. So basically, the 19 words is some variation of, I know you'll be successful and you have the skills, and I'm going to push you and I'm going to be right there with you. And this 19 words of a jump of 40% productivity to students, but an even higher. And so suddenly you're sharing a sentence basically with kids. This goes back to the feedback. This goes back to support mechanisms that were made. This goes back to things like a lot of us have PBIS kinds of versions, positive behavior in schools programs, incentivizing, calling out the good, and not giving the attention, not holding kids accountable, but not, flaming that attention that way. Instead, I'll give you one really quick example. I had a program called Middles to Littles. Have a program is kids that are disadvantaged that are showing signs of any potential, of them or almost all of them. Go read to preschoolers either in if it's not in the building, and you would think these kids think I'm nuts. Ask the first kid, his eyes lit up like he was given the opportunity, and he had a reading problem because Dr. Seuss is a lower level reading program. So he went in there, he read, the kids were high-fiving him. 3-year-olds don't see a tough, disadvantaged big kid. They see someone who's sharing with them, and they're hugging him, and he's suddenly changing his behavior. And the teachers who it's bad and they should do better are instead saying, that kid went down and read to the preschool, maybe running a little too fast or talking a little too loud. Instead of going up to that kid, I am to them, hey, when are you reading next? And suddenly they didn't even redirect his behavior, and in more effective and longer term ways. He was part of something bigger than himself. Opportunity to disadvantaged children, they almost always rise to the occasion. And we need how you start to bridge the gaps from advantage to disadvantage and really.
You provide meaning for them. You provide meaning. Think about that for a second. That will deter behaviors all the time. And I love that. And actually, I've stolen that idea, Michael. I wasn't going to tell you that. And I'm looking to incorporate that with a small group of kids. And no, there's no copyright, but it just makes sense. And you do that once a week, once every other week. Just do something to build upon that tolerance.
Celebrate them. And you make an announcement about it. Maybe you make a certificate, and you take pictures, and you get permission. This is incredible. It's that kind 100%. Of opportunity for those kids.
You know what, Mike? You're going to be surprised in January, because I have that idea and it's already been in progress. So you'll be seeing that on social media. Hey, Mike, thank you for being here. We really value what you brought to the table. Thanks for the better sound quality as compared to the last time. Your learning community is very fortunate to have you. I'm pretty sure your chain of command is more than happy that you're there. Great job, awesome, inspiring others with your books and everything that you bring. And we really appreciate you being here at Unlock the Middle, being a constant participant in our shows and not only expanding on the knowledge. So I appreciate you being here tonight. But you know what? Our show does not end tonight. You know why, Dean?
Thursday.
What show is that?
What is it? Not office hours, is it? No. I'm just kidding with you, Dr. Tovar. 9 p.m. What do we have, Josh?
We have the Red Zone.
Red Zone. Right.
Hey, we're in the playoff season. You know what? Got Shika here, part of the Fantastic Four. We're proud South Carolina fans. I'm gonna take my kid to go see South Carolina versus Notre Dame at the Gator Bowl. So we're looking forward to that. It's about family and it's about learning together. But this Thursday, we will have a special group of educators to joining us and seeing from the trenches how they're approaching this first semester. For you, it's the first trimester. For me, it's the first semester. It's about to finish. But you know what? It's getting that feedback, looking in that mirror, and becoming better version of ourselves. So join us this Thursday for the Red Zone at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Mike, for being here. Dean, let's go home.
Let's go home, man. Thanks, guys, so much. Again, another show, another completed roundtable. Love it very much. Michael, thank you very much for all you're doing again. Josh, thanks for the closure. Everybody out there, make sure that you continue to do best by children each and every day, because that's why we've chosen this job. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. See you Thursday.
Thanks, guys.